The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of the parish of St. Michael the Archangel, bathing the interior in a kaleidoscope of multicolored light. It was a Sunday like any other in San Miguel de Allende. Father Alejandro, a man with gray hair and kind eyes, stood at the pulpit, his warm voice echoing against the ancient pink stone walls. "And so, my dear brothers and sisters," he said, "love for one another is not just a suggestion, it is the very heart of our faith." But before he could finish, the heavy wooden doors of the church flew open. A boy, no older than 10, burst inside, his face pale and contorted with fear. His footsteps echoed on the stone floor as he ran down the central aisle, leaving a trail of startled whispers and astonished glances in his wake. "Father! Father Alejandro!" the boy cried, his voice choked with sobs. "Please help me." The priest, stunned by the interruption, hurried down from the pulpit, his cassock billowing as he rushed toward the child. The congregation fell into a tense silence, their eyes fixed on the unfolding scene. "Calm down, my child," Father Alejandro said, kneeling before the boy and placing his hands on his trembling shoulders. "What's going on? What's your name?" "My name is Tomas," the boy answered between sobs. "It's my mom. She won't wake up. I tried everything, but she won't open her eyes." A murmur of worry swept through the church. Father Alejandro glanced around, noting the anxious faces of his parishioners. Among them, he recognized Dona Consuelo, an elderly woman known for her wisdom and compassion. "Dona Consuelo," the priest called, "please stay with the boy for a moment." Then, turning to the sacristan, he ordered, "Miguel, call an ambulance immediately." Father Alejandro turned back to the congregation. "My dear brothers and sisters, I ask for your prayers. We will continue the Mass later. Right now, we must attend to this emergency." As Dona Consuelo embraced Tomas, trying to comfort him, Father Alejandro removed his stole and chasuble, laying them on a nearby bench. "Tomas," he said softly but firmly, "I'm going with you to see your mom. Can you show me where you live?" The boy nodded, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. We live close by, in the San Antonio neighborhood." Together, the priest and the boy left the church, followed by the worried gazes of the congregation. The morning sun, which had seemed so welcoming earlier, now felt relentless and scorching as they hurried through the cobblestone streets of San Miguel de Allende. The house on the cobblestone street Tomas led Father Alejandro to a small adobe house with a chipped blue door. Inside, the home was modest but clean, with walls adorned with religious images and family photos. In the kitchen, a young woman lay on the floor, her pale, gaunt face contrasting sharply with the colorful tiles beneath her. Pill bottles, some empty, others spilled, were scattered around her. Father Alejandro knelt beside her, checking for vital signs. To his relief, he found a faint pulse. "She's alive," he murmured, more to himself than to Tomas. At that moment, the sound of a siren approached. The ambulance had arrived. "Tomas," the priest said, turning to the boy, who was watching the scene with fearful eyes. "Your mom needs help, but she's alive. The doctors will take care of her now. I'll stay with you, all right?" The boy nodded, throwing himself into Father Alejandro's arms, seeking comfort. The hospital at the General Hospital of San Miguel de Allende. Father Alejandro sat next to Tomas in the waiting room. The boy, exhausted from crying and anxiety, had fallen asleep with his head resting on the priest's shoulder. A nurse approached them. "Father," she said softly, "Mrs. Elena is stable. You can go see her, but—" She glanced at Tomas. "Perhaps it's best if the boy doesn't go in just yet." Father Alejandro nodded, thanking her with a gesture. Carefully, he laid Tomas down on the chair and headed toward Elena's room. Inside, Elena lay in bed, pale and connected to several machines. Her sunken, dark-circled eyes opened slowly at the sound of the priest's footsteps. "Father Alejandro," she murmured in a hoarse voice. "Where's Tomas?" "He's safe, Elena. Asleep in the waiting room. the priest responded, approaching the bed. Elena, what happened? Why? Elena closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. I can't take it anymore, Father. Life, it's too heavy. Over the next hour, Elena, between sobs and pauses to catch her breath, told her story. She spoke of how she had fallen in love with Jack, an American tourist, and how he had promised her the world. She spoke of how, when she became pregnant, Jack disappeared, leaving her alone to raise Tomas. I tried to be strong for my son, Father, Elena said, her voice barely a whisper. But every day is a struggle. And Tomas, every time I look at him, I see Jack. He's a constant reminder of my mistake, of my naivety. Father Alejandro listened, his heart heavy with Elena's pain. My child, Tomas is not a mistake. He's a gift, a light in your life. I know, Father, Elena replied, closing her eyes. But that only makes me feel worse. What kind of mother can't see beyond her own pain to love her child the way he deserves? The unexpected visitor in the days that followed. As Elena recovered in the hospital, Father Alejandro immersed himself in helping the small family. He organized a collection at the parish to cover medical expenses and made sure Tomas had a safe place to stay with Dona Consuelo. One afternoon, while Father Alejandro was going over some documents in his office, he received an unexpected visitor. A tall man with blonde hair and blue eyes. Father, the man said nervously. My name is Jack Thompson. I think I'm Tomas's father. The priest felt the air leave his lungs. Jack. Tomas's father. I saw the news online, Jack explained. A Facebook group for expats in San Miguel mentioned what happened to Elena. I didn't know she was pregnant when I left. I didn't know I had a son. Father Alejandro struggled to keep his composure. And now what, Jack? Have you come to meet your son? Or to apologize to Elena for abandoning her? Jack lowered his gaze. I don't know, Father. Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing here. But when I saw the news, I felt like I had to come. Maybe I can help in some way. The reunion, the sun was setting over San Miguel de Allende, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, as Father Alejandro brought Jack to the hospital. In Elena's room, the air was thick with tension. How dare you show up now? Elena's voice, though weak, was full of bitterness. After all these years, what gives you the right? Jack ran a hand over his face, visibly distressed. Elena, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know you were pregnant when I left. And does that make it better? Elena shot back. The fact that you didn't know? You left me alone with a child. Does that make everything okay? Father Alejandro intervened, his voice soft but firm. Elena, Jack, I understand there is a lot of pain and resentment here, but we must think of Tomas. He deserves to know the truth and have the chance to have his father in his life, if that's what he wants. Tomas, who had remained silent until that moment, finally spoke. Are you my dad? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Jack knelt in front of the boy, his eyes filled with tears. Yes, Tomas, I'm your father. I know I haven't been here for you, and I'm so sorry, but if you'll give me the chance, I'd like to get to know you and be part of your life. Trembling, Tomas clutched his mother's hand. I know you're mad at Dad. I'm a little mad at him too, but can we give him a chance? I don't want you to be sad anymore. Elena looked at her son, then at Jack, and finally at Father Alejandro. She sighed, the weight of years of pain and betrayal pressing on her chest. Slowly, she nodded. All right, Tomas, we can try. But, she added, turning her piercing gaze to Jack, if you hurt my son again, I swear to God, you'll wish you never came back to San Miguel. Jack met her eyes with unwavering solemnity. I understand, Elena, and I promise. I'll do everything I can not to let you down again. Father Alejandro observed them, knowing this was merely the beginning of a long and arduous road. Yet, amid the tension, he saw something fragile but undeniable, a glimmer of hope. The days that followed were filled with raw emotions and hesitant conversations. Jack stayed in a nearby hotel, visiting Elena and Tomas daily. The initial stiffness between them gradually softened. One afternoon, while Tomas napped in his hospital chair, Jack approached Elena, his expression serious. "Elena," he said quietly, "I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I've made a decision." Elena turned to him, wary. "What decision?" Jack took a deep breath. "I'm divorcing my wife. I'm moving to San Miguel." Elena's eyes widened. "Jack, you can't—" "Yes, I can," he interrupted, determination in his voice. "And I have to. I owe this to you, to Tomas. I've spent the last 10 years living a lie, Elena. It's time to face the truth." Before Elena could respond, a small gasp made them turn. Tomas was awake, his wide eyes filled with cautious hope. "Are you really going to stay, Dad?" Jack knelt beside him and cupped his son's face. "Yes, Tomas, I'm staying. We have a lot of time to make up for." From the doorway, Father Alejandro watched the scene with quiet contemplation. The road ahead would be steep and filled with trials, but for the first time he truly believed they had a chance at healing. San Miguel de Allende, with its cobblestone streets and vibrant colonial facades, became the setting for a slow but steady reconciliation. Elena was discharged from the hospital, but her emotional wounds ran deep. With Father Alejandro's encouragement, she began attending therapy and support groups, confronting her past pain one step at a time. One afternoon, while walking through the city's bustling main square with Father Alejandro, Elena stopped in front of the iconic Parroquia de San Miguel Arcángel. She gazed up at its towering spires, her lips curling into a faint smile. "You know, Father, I never thought I'd be grateful for the day Tomas interrupted Massachusetts. But that was the start of everything." Father Alejandro nodded. "Sometimes, our darkest moments lead us to something new and beautiful. Just like this church, it has withstood earthquakes and wars, yet it still stands. And so do you, Elena." Meanwhile, Jack was navigating the consequences of his past. His divorce was painful, especially when he had to face his other children in the United States. But he remained steadfast in his decision. He was staying in San Miguel to be the father Tomas deserved. One day, as he picked out avocados in the market, he spotted Father Alejandro. "Father," Jack asked hesitantly, "do you think I'll ever make up for all the damage I've caused?" The priest studied him for a moment before responding. "Jack, true repentance isn't just about feeling guilt. It's about changing your actions, and you're doing that. Healing takes time, but it is possible." Tomas, too, faced his own emotions. The joy of having his father near was often overshadowed by the lingering fear that Jack would leave again. Yet, as weeks passed, Jack's steady presence reassured him. Their bond, fragile at first, grew stronger with each moment spent together. One Sunday after Mass, Tomas tugged on Father Alejandro's sleeve. "Father, do you think God planned all of this? That my dad left and then came back?" Father Alejandro knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "God doesn't plan our suffering, Tomas, but He gives us the strength to overcome it. Sometimes, the greatest blessings come from our hardest struggles." As months passed, the bitterness between Elena and Jack softened, replaced by a tentative friendship. Their shared love for Tomas became the bridge that slowly mended their shattered history. One evening, as they sat in Elena's courtyard surrounded by the scent of bougainvillea, Jack hesitated before speaking. "Elena, I know we've been through so much, and I know we still have a long way to go, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to try to be a family again. The three of us." Elena inhaled sharply. Tomas, sitting between them, held his breath. She looked at Jack, really looked at him. "Jack, I won't lie. Part of me still loves you, but another part of me is still hurt. I can't promise you anything, but I'm willing to try. For Tomas, and for us." Tomas's smile outshone every candle in the courtyard. Father Alejandro, upon hearing the news, felt both joy and caution. He knew that love alone wouldn't erase the past. It would take work, patience, and forgiveness. But for the first time, he believed they had a real chance. A year later, the bells of the Parroquia chimed, calling the faithful to Sunday, Massachusetts. In a small adobe house with a freshly painted blue door, Elena, Jack, and Tomas prepared to attend church together, for the first time as a family. Tomas adjusted his shirt in the mirror. "Do you think people will look at us weird?" he asked nervously. Elena smoothed his collar. "Maybe, but what matters is that we're together." Jack smiled. "Your mom's right, kid. And besides, this community has supported us. I think they'll be happy to see us happy." As they walked through the city's cobbled streets, Elena couldn't help but remember the Sunday when Tomas had first cried out in the church. How much had changed since then? During Mass, Father Alejandro's homily was about the power of forgiveness. His words felt directed at them, though the message was universal. "Forgiveness isn't weakness," he said. "It's the greatest act of strength. Love has the power to heal the deepest wounds." As the service ended, parishioners greeted them warmly. Dona Consuelo, who had cared for Tomas during their hardest times, embraced them. "Look at you," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "What a beautiful family you've become." Jack turned to Father Alejandro. "We couldn't have done this without you." The priest shook his head. "I only showed you the way. You had the strength to walk it." Later, as they sat in the main square, enjoying churros and hot chocolate, Elena glanced at her son and then at Jack. The laughter of children, the scent of cinnamon, the golden light of the setting sun. It all felt more vibrant, more alive. "We're lucky," she murmured. Jack nodded. "From the deepest darkness, we found our light." Tomas grinned. "And now we're part of San Miguel's story too." And as they sat there, in the heart of a city that had witnessed their pain and their healing, they knew this was only the beginning of something beautiful.